it appears that we are ending the government shutdown. 43 days, 43 nights. American citizens working for the feds were not receiving a check. 43 days, the longest government shutdown in United States history. The longest before this was 2018 into 2019 under then President Donald Trump in his first term. Needless to say, the now longest shutdown was also with Donald Trump in office as the president of the United States, 45 and now 47. Listen, when you look at what has transpired, it's pretty damn annoying, to say the least. You just find yourself wondering what the hell is going on. I'm still disgusted because there's no excuse for this. Now, I don't know about anybody else, and everybody's talking about, you know what, pick a side, pick a side. Damn, y'all, shut the hell up. I'll pick whatever side I want to pick. It's not about a side in this particular instance. It's about government officials in the White House, in Congress, on the Senate that didn't come together to get a deal done for 43 days and nights.
43 days and 43 nights. The longest government shutdown in American history. And for what? While federal workers missed paychecks, families on SNAP worried about food, and flights were delayed across the country. The clowns in DC keep getting paid and playing games. Democrats use the shutdown to try and score points on Trump and protect Obamacare subsidies, while Republicans drag their feet and let it all burn instead of leading. Stephen A. Smith just went off on both sides, calling out the Dems for power-hungry strategy and the GOP for letting it happen. In this video, we're breaking down exactly how both parties failed the American people and why voters are sick of all of them.
When everybody's got their excuses, but in the end, this government shutdown needed to come to an end. And that's why I'm kind of surprised, and I don't know why I should be, but I am, that we have a situation where we've got elected officials on the Democratic side losing their damn minds, calling folks out, acting like it's a picket line that was crossed, for crying out loud. And how dare folks on the Democratic side do this? Hold down the fort. Don't cave. Don't do everything you can to make sure that the Republicans don't get the 60 votes necessary to push through a continual resolution. Now, the Republicans will have you say, and they'll remind you that when Biden, during his administration, from 2021 to 2025, they signed a CR 14 separate occasions. But the Democrats wouldn't do it during Trump's first term. They wouldn't do it now. Why? Because you're talking about the Affordable Care Act subsidies that they were trying to stretch, things that were put into place because COVID came along, by the way, that had an expiration date of December 31st, 2025, that they wanted to extend into perpetuity. And the Republicans weren't going for that, which everybody knew, because Trump has been after squashing Obamacare since 2014, 2 years before he became president the first go round. So why in God's name would he do anything to push forward with Affordable Care Act, ACA subsidies for another year, another 3 years, another 5 years? Why would he do that? It's one thing for them to do it during COVID. It's another thing entirely for them to do it now. We knew he was going to hold down the fort. I don't blame folks like Fetterman out of Pennsylvania, or anybody else for that matter, from New Hampshire, from Pennsylvania, from Nevada, all the elected officials from Nevada. I don't blame them one bit. I side with the Democrats who ultimately crossed the line and said, yo, this is killing the American citizens in our district. And what the Democrats, to me, are not realizing is that you're essentially confessing to the fact that this was a plan all along, that you had every intention of the government being shut down, that you knew there was no way in hell that you were willing to capitulate to anything involving the CR that the GOP put forth to you. From last spring, when Chuck Schumer wouldn't go along with it and didn't produce a government shutdown, to this time around where he obviously took a different position, at least publicly, because he's afraid to lose his power in his Senate seat because he hears the footsteps of AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, creeping up behind him to take over his Senate seat in 2028. We know what's going on here. We know what's going on. But in the end, to me, when you're talking about 42 million people on SNAP that were in danger of not being fed while Thanksgiving is approaching, when you see the inordinate amount of flight delays that have taken place because air traffic controllers ain't at work in abundance, some being furloughed, some being let go, folks wondering about whether they're going to get paid retroactively, which ultimately this new CR is supposed to resolve. All of those concerns are legitimate. All of it. And they said, no, we can't go for that. We can't go for that. And just for the record, you see the screen right there. In regards to the shutdown, 45% of registered voters think Republicans in Congress are more responsible for the government shutdown. 39% think Democrats in Congress are more responsible, and 11% volunteered that they think both parties are equally responsible. Among independents, 48% think Republicans in Congress are more responsible. 32% think Democrats in Congress are more responsible. 14% volunteered that they think both parties are equally responsible. If you're the Democrats, that's good news.
At the end of the day, this shutdown had more effect on us, regular Americans, than it did to any one of those in power playing and picking to choose certain things or play games. At the end of the day, it affects us. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, yeah, both sides are trash, which in this situation they are, do me a favor, drop a comment, leave a like, and say both sides failed. The only way this stuff changes is people like us wake up and show how rigged the game is. They aren't really working for me and you. It's for their special interest, money, and to stay in power. It's not fair to any of us. Not at all.
Because considering how you got blown out during the 2024 election, these numbers would be considered improved numbers. Because now you're gaining traction. We saw you win the mayoral seat with a socialist in New York City. We saw you win gubernatorial seats in New Jersey with Mickey Sherrill and with Abigail Spanberger in Virginia. So if you're the Democrats and you're having those kind of wins, even though everybody and their grandmama knew those were blue states and they weren't going to lose to the GOP in those states, the bottom line is you think you're gaining traction. And because you thought you were gaining traction, you're willing to sit out even longer. What was the reason for that? Because you want to regain power, which I'm not faulting. But when we're talking about the American people suffering during the shutdown, spanning 30, 40, 43 days, and we talk about people not being fed during Thanksgiving holidays, and we're talking about travel nightmares, and we're talking about people being furloughed, and we're talking about people having to work for the federal government knowing they're not receiving a check, while elected officials on Capitol Hill over these 8 weeks were receiving checks, still maintain their medical coverage, weren't accumulating bills that they couldn't pay. This is why people find themselves disgusted with politicians. So to listen to them and to hear them disgusted at themselves, that's not a bad thing. Good. Hope you're stressed like living hell because you deserve what you brought upon the American people. Maybe you should taste some of it yourself. So let's just go down the list. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC.
Should Schumer stay as minority leader?
I think what is so important for folks to understand is that this problem is bigger than one person, and it actually is bigger than the minority leader in the Senate. You had 8 Senate Democrats who coordinated their own votes on this, as well as you have 2 retiring members. Many of them are also up in several cycles from now, with the hope that people are going to forget this moment. And I think what's important is that we understand that this is not just a leader is reflected as a reflection of the party. And Senate Democrats have selected their leadership to represent them. And so the question needs to be bigger than just one person. We have several Senate primaries this cycle. I know I'm being asked about New York. That is years from now. I have to remind my own constituents because they think that this election is this year. We actually do have Senate elections this year. And my hope is that people across this country actually participate in their primary elections in selecting their leadership. Thank you.
That's a nice answer. We understand it, but that's much ado about nothing. She wants the Senate seat, and she should.
Thank you.
That's a nice answer. We understand it, but that's much ado about nothing. She wants the Senate seat, and she should. And the likelihood is that if she ran against Chuck Schumer, she would beat him because his unpopularity has definitely grown. I can say that. And we understand that because he's being blamed for it because he couldn't keep people together. My whole point is this. If you have representatives from Pennsylvania, from Nevada, from New Hampshire, etc., okay, and their constituency, their voters are really, really feeling the pinch. What, they're just supposed to go along with the other 39, 40 plus Democrats in the House and say, yo, we just gonna let our own constituency suffer over something like this, over people being fed, over people paying bills? That's what they're supposed to do? I don't get it.
Let me pause and sum this up just a little bit. We just watched Stephen A. lay out how the shutdown wasn't some little accident. It was a political play. Democrats dragged it out to brand it as a Trump shutdown and protected their Obamacare subsidies. Republicans refused to bend and let the whole thing rise instead of actually leading. Meanwhile, regular Americans missed paychecks, worried about food, got hammered with travel costs, while everybody in DC still got paid and was able to live their lives. Bottom line, this wasn't about us. It was about power, optics, and who could spin the better blame to make the other side look bad. Watch this next part coming up and see this was all about political power, leverage, and partisan gains to stand against Trump in spite of the needs of everyday Americans like me and you.
Representative Khanna, he didn't mince words. He didn't dance as much as AOC just did there. He was a bit more direct.
You've called on Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to step aside. You say he's no longer effective as a leader. Explain this for our viewers, because he did vote against this compromise that you oppose. Why are you mad at him?
Jake, you've covered politics a long time. Yes, he voted no, but 8 senators who said they consulted him daily go and vote yes. One of those people is his number 2. He's not going to do that without Senator Schumer's sign off. And then conveniently, all 8 of those senators aren't up for re-election in 2026. This is the DC way. Senator Schumer could have blocked this if he had wanted to. And one of the challenges is, in addition to the healthcare premium spikes, it undermines the narrative that this was a Trump shutdown. If 8 Republicans, 8 Democratic senators could have ended it. We should have kept the pressure on.
Did you hear that? They should have kept the pressure on. By not doing so, it gave the pressure and undermined the narrative that this was a Trump shutdown, which essentially is the Democrats admitting that the plan all along was to make this look like a Trump shutdown. Therefore, it could be politically expedient and they can gain traction and gain some favor with the voters out there with the midterms coming up. Because that's what this was about. Nobody's fooled here. And I'm not even saying it's a faulty strategy on the part of the Democrats. What I'm saying is, damn, what the hell were you doing to find another way? See, this is where I come back to. This is where Stephen A. Smith comes into play. Because what pisses me off to no end is that had you done your job prior to the election, this wouldn't have been necessary. Had you paid attention to the economy, had you paid attention to affordability, had you paid attention to safety in the streets, had you paid attention to our borders instead of having open borders, allowing Trump to make it look like we were being invaded, for crying out loud, because of the extreme with which he embellished illegal immigration being pervasive in this country. Had you focused on that and the real issues instead of focusing on woke culture and cancel culture and making sure everybody echoed the right pronouns and making sure everybody marched lockstep in parroting your speech, you'd have won the damn election. Had you made sure that Kamala Harris and the Democrats as a party wasn't able to circumvent the democratic process and actually went through a primary by getting Biden out of there when you knew he wasn't suited for 4 more years, instead of holding on for dear life until he had a debate on June 27th, knowing that he would leave office 3 weeks later and it would be too late to have a primary so you could circumvent the democratic process, maybe you wouldn't be in this position. But you did it anyway. And now you want the American people to make up for your foolishness. You want the American people to sign off on that. Oh, now you will care about the Affordable Care Act. Now you care about the subsidies. Now you're paying attention to premium prices doubling come December 31st. Now you're paying attention to all of that, huh? How come you didn't do that before? How come you didn't focus on that before? This is what I'm talking about. I know the GOP's hands ain't clean in all of this. Mike Johnson delaying the process. Trump doing everything he can to create headlines everywhere else because he doesn't want us focusing on the Epstein files. We were born that night, not last night. You know what the hell is going on. But the Dems ain't innocent in all of this. Not by a damn sight.
If you're just sick, tired, and done with team sports politics that go against the American people, that don't prioritize American first politics, and you just want straight talk, hit the like button, subscribe, tell me what you think in the comments. And once again, I thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Street News Network. I'm your host, Langston, and I'll see you all next time.